Kia ora everybody and welcome to this quick tutorial about unfamiliar text and how to answer the questions that come up in the exam. So this is leading on from our lockdown work last week about getting to know unfamiliar text and what it's actually about. So this is now about how to approach the exam itself. So remember that there are 3 key skills for unfamiliar text that you need to develop and that are actually assessed in the exam paper. The first one is identifying language features. So being able to say, this is a simile, this is a metaphor, this is a hyperbole, this is an allusion. So being able to identify them for yourself. Then the analysis of those language features. So what is actually the effect of this particular metaphor and how is it being created? What is it communicating to the reader? And finally, recognizing tone and purpose in writing. So the writers use these particular language features and have created these effects for what purpose? What do those language features used together tell us about what the author was trying to communicate to us? What do they want us to learn or think about or understand or be aware of? So it's all those things working together, which you already are familiar with from your text studies that you've done, whether that's been poetry or short stories or novel. So you have experience with this process. Unfamiliar text just really focuses on that. So let's talk about how you approach unfamiliar text. Now remember, when you sit down in the exam for unfamiliar text, you're given 2 booklets. One is for your answers, to write your answers in, and one has the 3 sections of text. Now you might be tempted to dive in and start reading those texts, reading the unfamiliar text that you need to respond to. Do not do that first. Okay, that wastes valuable time in the exam. Do not dive in and read the texts first. What you want to do is actually open the answer booklet first, because in that booklet you will be prompted by a question to respond to. So there will be 1 question per text type. Okay, if you read the question first, that prompts you into what to look for. It's really important that you read that first because the question will offer you clues for what to actually look for and respond to in the unfamiliar text that you're about to read. So instead of diving in and reading it for no particular purpose, if you start with the question in your answer booklet, that gives you something to look for. So then after you read the question, then you go to the unfamiliar text and you annotate and highlight as you go. And we're going to look at strategies for that later on. So I'm going to show you what I mean in that for this particular process that we're talking about. So you can see here, this is my answer booklet. This is what it will look like, what you're given. Analyze significant aspects of unfamiliar written text. And you'll also be given the resource booklet, and it says resource booklet on the front here. So you can see you've got text A, which is the prose, which is just the regular piece of fiction writing. Remember, NCEA blanks it out for copyright reasons in the exemplars online, but yours will obviously have words. Text B is the poetry, and text C is non-fiction text. So I could be tempted to dive right in and start reading this piece of writing, but it would make more sense to start in the answer booklet and look at the question. So question 1, prose, refer to text A of the resource booklet, analyze how the writer's attitude to other people is revealed. Analyze how the writer's attitude to other people is revealed. So that gives me a clue that I need to be looking for how does the writer feel about the particular people that he or she is describing. So that gives me a hint. I can go back to the text and start looking for, well, how is the writer feeling about this? Okay, and then I can annotate and understand that in a little more detail. It really focuses your reading of the text, so you're not just randomly reading it. And it's the same for the poetry. If I have a look at the poetry question, analyze how the poet reflects on the significance of the mountains. So I need to go to the poem and look, what is the significance of these mountains, the importance of those mountains. So it makes a lot more sense to actually read the question first before you read the text itself. So let's say you've read it and you've annotated and now you're ready to answer the unfamiliar text. So remember, it's more like 3 long answers as opposed to an essay, right? If you're doing the visual text paper or the written text paper, you'll be writing essays for that. The unfamiliar text is 3 long answers. And the 3 sections of text, prose, poetry, and nonfiction, those don't relate to each other. They're entirely separate. So the 3 sections do not connect. And even though your answers aren't essays, you should absolutely still follow the sexy structure for each of your answers, okay? So you'll have the question that's given to you, analyze how the writer shows the significance of the remarkables or whatever that other one was. You should still follow the sexy structure for that answer. So you have a statement to introduce what you're going to write about. You give an explanation, some context or information about what you're going to say. The X, for example, you give an example of a language feature from the text and analysing it using the what, how, why method, as we're all familiar with. And ideally, you want to be giving 3 examples of language features to support what you're saying, to support your answer to the unfamiliar question. So the paragraph will be a little bit longer. And then the comment, to explain what the overall purpose and effect of the piece of writing is and how the language choices relate to that. That's a merit and excellence territory in level 2. Okay, so how do these writing choices, these language features, speak to the overall purpose of the text? So overall, what that means is that for each section of the unfamiliar text exam, you write 1 sexy paragraph, which will be quite long, with 3 examples. Okay, so you still use the sexy structure because that's a logical way to structure an answer, but it's not a full essay. So hopefully now you see the difference between how to approach an essay and how to approach unfamiliar, and the way that you structure the answers to those questions.